inside your 166 directory, you should see something called Metasploit. It may or may not be a good version of Metasploit. So what you want to do, at least, is go out to Metasploit.com and get the free Metasploit download, because you have to get a security key to download this. All right, so you have to use a real email address to do this. All right, and this is all being recorded, just so you've got it.
I just can't hear you, so I'm
Okay.
coming up here.
Pull up a chair.
It sounded important.
Yep, no, pull up a chair. All right, before you install, so I'm going to recommend that you download the latest version from Metasploit. All right, so I'm going to really recommend that you do this first. Before you install, I want to make sure that you've updated your firewall by turning it off. If you have a firewall up and running when you download Metasploit, your install will fail. If your install fails, you can try to rip it out of your system. You may not be able to do that, so they may have to re-image your entire hard drive. So your firewall must be off. So everybody go turn off your firewall. If you have antivirus on your computer system, this thing will load live viral payloads onto your computer for you to use against our victim boxes on the private network. You must turn off antivirus. If you don't turn off antivirus, Metasploit will fail to load. You may be able to rip it out of your hard drive, you may not. If you can't rip it out of your hard drive and actually get a good, clean, fresh install, then you have to go have your computer re-imaged by Justin. Are we seeing the trend here? That if you screw up on the install, you got to have your computer re-imaged by Justin for 9 times out of 10, right? If it can't build the indexes for the exploits, if it just sits there and runs, then the install failed, and you have to either try to rip it off your hard drive, or you have to go have your computer re-imaged by Justin. There's lots of ways that Metasploit can go wrong. All right? There's just lots of ways that can go wrong. So let's make sure no antivirus is on your box. If you have an antivirus, it must be turned off. Make sure that your firewall is turned off.
Does that include Microsoft Solutions?
That includes everything. Because remember, you got to remember when you're working with Metasploit, it's loading live viral payloads onto your computer. Microsoft will go, oh my God, it's a virus. Oh my God, oh my God. It will panic. And then next thing you know, it will start blocking the install. And once it blocks the install, you're kind of doomed. Right? Once you've got that, the other thing you're going to end up, you're going to get an email from Metasploit. And then you're going to get a license key. This license key is only good once. If you download the license key and you use it and your Metasploit fails, you actually have to go through and get another license key. All right? It's a one-to-one relationship. If it blows up, get a new license key. The license keys are free, right? You just have to use a real email address so you can actually get the real license key. All right? Once you are positive and happy that you've got all this stuff turned off, you should have something called Metasploit Latest Windows Installer. And it's huge, right? What you want to do is you just want to go ahead and install it like you would any other software. The install is a little bit weird. It's going to ask you for a lot of really kind of odd, off-the-wall questions. So just so you guys, I'm going to walk through the install with you so you actually have got it set up. You have to accept the license agreement. Oh, by the way, this license agreement includes your firstborn child. So if you don't want your child anymore, hey, there you go.
Excellent option.
Send it on to them. Where it will drop it is in the root, C Metasploit. It won't drop it underneath program files. So if you have to rip it off your system, the first thing you do is you go to C Metasploit and delete it. Then empty the trash can. All right? If you have to delete it, pull it off C Metasploit, take it all, drag it over to your trash can, and then empty the trash can. Because there's going to be little fragments left behind all over the place. You're going to find stuff, different stuff, underneath Rapid7, underneath program files x86. You're going to find some other different stuff that it needs to run underneath program files. Right? So it's all over your computer when it installs. So it's sort of like installs like the Black Death. It's everywhere all at once and will pillage most villages. All right? Disable antivirus. It tells you to do this, and disable your firewall. Admitted, it puts you in kind of an interesting situation here when you have no firewall and no antivirus going. Right? So there are ways of taking advantage of this while you're in the classroom against your other student boxes. If you turn on the firewall after the install, your Metasploit will not function at all in the way that you want to, and that means Metasploit will fail, which means you have to rip Metasploit off your computer, and if you can't rip it off your computer, you have to go have your computer re-imaged by Justin. If you do anything weird with this, if Metasploit fails and will not load, you have to try to rip it off your computer, or you have to have it re-imaged by Justin. It's one of the two. Yes? Yes, you want to use your real name. You can't say you're Captain James Tiberius Kirk or the doctor from Gallifrey with a 555-555-551 number or anything else. You have to at least you have to use real names on this one. All right, it's going to give you an SSL port, 3790, because part of this will run off of your web browser. And the web browser part's a little bit twitchy. Your server name, your days of validity, 365,650 for about 10 years. All right, so no biggie. Yes, trust the certificate. It's going to be added to your operating system's trusted store. All right, so whichever default browser you've set up for yourself, whether it's Chrome, IE, or Firefox, that's where it's going to store it in the certificate store. If you're using Internet Explorer, I highly advise against using Internet Explorer while using this program. All right, because Internet Explorer will do weird things. All right, then go next. And what it's going to do is actually going to go through and install. You're going to spend most of your time during the install at the command line. All right? And that's what this is all about. These are all the instructions on how to get into one of our test victims, step by step by step. And it was actually tested out by 3 victims before it ever hit the classroom. And then the whole classroom last term didn't have any problems. Right? So if you guys run into an error, let me know. All right? But you're going to be at the command line for a lot of this. Depending on your operating system. If you are running Windows 7, odds are highly likely. If it popped up with 32-bit, then download the 32-bit version. All the computers are weird. Yeah. Do not, under any circumstances, for anything that you can think of that would be really, really cool, load this software at home. Because you do not want to have a home PC without an antivirus and a firewall. I'm just saying, Comcast network's dirty, right? Even if you're behind a router, don't install this at home. All right, because of the things you have to do, which is turn off antivirus and turn off your firewall. So if you're running around there and you're going to all these really, really cool sites and you're downloading games and wallpapers and all the rest of it, without an antivirus, you're like damned. You might as well just put a big sign that says, hack me now. All right, so don't do this on your home PC because it really puts your computer in a very vulnerable position to be live on the internet. Yes, sir? No, because I'm not going to cover Pro at all. So just download the Community Edition. One of the added advantages of social engineering, it will actually go through and purposefully scan social networks, looking for things that you can use and abuse. The Pro version is a really interesting version. It's about $4,000 or $5,000 last time I checked, but it does everything, including the kitchen sink, and it makes an excellent, excellent cup of coffee. This is a hacker's tool that's also used by good guys. So with the good guys, it's a pen test tool. Be very careful with your language. For the good guys, it's a pen test tool. Say it with me. For the good guys, it's a pen test tool. See, she's got it. All right, let's hear you say it. For the good guys, it's a pen test tool. Very good. So that you can learn how to do good pen testing. That's exactly why you get this tool in this class, is so that you can learn how to be a good pen tester. I can absolutely guarantee you that at least one person in this class will do something absolutely stupid and get thrown out of the college. I can guarantee you that. There probably are, but I don't know about them. By making it, they're giving it to the public, but we haven't even gotten really started yet, so you don't know how they've crippled it in the Community Edition. The Pro Edition, if you've got $5,000, you go for it. If you've got $5,000 that you do not need anywhere else, buy the Pro Edition. Yes, John? Depending on your operating system, download the version that makes sense for your operating system. Oh yeah, we're all way too cute to go to federal prison. We do not want to go there. Remember, King County Jail, no, we don't want to go there either.
I'll say a federal prison is better than county.
Yeah, well. All right, but again, so it's kind of that idea. It's a really kind of slow, laid back, easy kind of install, right? But you really do need that licensing key. And the good part is that it's only doable once. You got it? Did your key show up? Very good. It could take up to about 24 hours for your key to show up. Sometimes you'll get it right off the bat. Sometimes when I have 30 people asking for the key all at the same time, they kind of wonder what's going on. All right. All right. Do you have to do what?
Disable Windows Defender.
Oh, yes. Disable any form of antivirus on your computer, Windows Defender included. Windows Defender is a pseudo kind of weird antivirus-y kind of thing that's somewhat accurate. It's going to be underneath your control panel. Yeah, you definitely want to make sure that everything is turned off. Windows Defender is truly an antivirus. It's a little bit odd. Turn it off. Click off. All right. So once it's done installing, it's going to want to do a start, right, when it starts up and does its own thing. And this will take a couple minutes, so what I'm going to do is I'll pause it here until we get actually started. What we need to do here. Okay, once you're here, right, go ahead and click on Finish, and then it should bring up the web UI. So the default browser for this guy is set to, we want to allow blocked content. All right, so we go to HTTPS localhost. I really, really, really hate using. So your login name. If you forget your login name, there is no way to replace this. You have to try to rip the software out of your system. If you can't rip the software out of your system, you have to go get your system re-imaged by Justin. So use whatever makes sense for you.
Is that the secure login?
It can be whatever login you want it to be that you will remember. That's the big one. It's only going to respond to localhost. It won't respond to anybody else. Right? So this is the main account that you're going to have. If you do something weird, letters, numbers, at least one special character, all right, so that's your account. All right, your license key. It's just easier if you copy and paste it. And then go ahead and activate the license. Huh? You don't use a proxy to get out on the internet. Just enter the key and then go for it. So from here you can actually go and kind of do things, right? But the focus on this is not on the web administration side. Underneath your all programs, you're going to have a whole new thing called Metasploit. All right? And what I want you to do is I want you to go into the Metasploit Console. If you absolutely blow out, you can try to do a password reset, which is actually really kind of cool. If you need diagnostic logs or shells, you can always get to the web UI, but we're not going to focus on that. You can uninstall it here. You can see all the other stuff that they've got. So there's some web stuff. You can do some frameworks. There's some services, start and stop. If it gets hung, you can try to start and stop it. All right? And then there's some other tools, VNC Viewer, and then some Windows stuff. But what we want to do is we want to go to the console. And what's going to end up happening, you can make this console as big as you want to make it. It's going to pause for a minute because what it needs to do is index the database. It's actually working while it's doing this, right? It just looks kind of funny because there's this big pause and it doesn't tell you what it's doing at the time, right? So while it's hanging out and kind of doing its own thing, it's checking all of its databases, it's going through and making sure everything's cool, it's making sure everything's just happy with it and hunky-dory. Huh? Then you'll just have to wait. All right, everything's kind of hunky-dory, but it really does take a little bit of time for it to get going. So it starts the Metasploit Console. This is what you want to see as your first start. All right. And again, this takes a minute and a half. Okay, if it's successfully loaded, you should see this beautiful little chunk of ASCII art. All right? So ASCII art is really, really cool. First initial commands. If you have no idea what to do, just type the question mark. You have to wait until you actually see the art. Huh? Everyone's ASCII art's going to be different. Yes. It kind of works on a random generator. So while I may get the super cow, right, other people will get other stuff. But if you hit question mark, what it does is it tells you everything that it can do. All right? So some things to really remember. Right? You can toggle color modes in here if you want to have a different coloring scheme. You can edit modules. You can exit the console by typing exit. If you type exit, you may shut down your console. Okay? You can launch the web UI from here. Right? You can actually do some other stuff. You can get to the help command. You can do some information about one or more modules. You can drop into IRB scripting mode. Right? And that's kind of a neat thing to be able to do. You can kill jobs if they hang. Right? You can load a plugin. And you're going to be using a lot of load in here. Right? You can actually do and move modules off the stack and make it active. You can go save stuff. You can quit. You can push stuff. You can also do a lot of other stuff with your database. Right? So if you want to see what's actually inside your database, you can actually just type creds. Right? And that will show you all the credentials that Metasploit was able to pull off of the servers that it went ahead and scanned. Right? You can actually do Nmap from in here if you want to do Nmap from in here. So, question mark, back. If you want to set your remote host is the computer that you want to hack. All right? So if we set our remote host, set our host to 192.168.203 on our super secret private network, right? And what was the one for one of our boxes? I don't know if we're still on 12 or not. So I want to do 6. So I'm going to go after 6 because that's our victim box. Anything we launch then, now that we've got set our host and then hit enter, right? That means anything that we do is actually going to launch it off against that box. All right. If we want to go after a different box, then we can just set the R host to a different number. All right. So we know we're going after a Windows box. All right. If you want to set your local host IP address, you can do that. You don't have to. All right. So if we want to do, and we want to search Windows SMB -T exploit. Right? Because we want to be able to see, we can search the database for all the SMB exploits that we've got. All right? System message blocks. What are system message blocks? System message blocks? Anybody? Going once. Going twice. It's how Windows communicates happy family kind of stuff. Right? So all Windows boxes communicate via SMB. $share, admin shares, and all that other kind of good stuff. And you're going to get this horrific list of stuff crop up here in a minute. So what it does is it actually goes through the entire database. Every single exploit that it knows, it's going to pull up and then chuck it out to the screen for you. As soon as it gets caught up, it's kind of doing its own thing. Yes, the step-by-step guide that is in your Canvas shell right now. But you guys can't get to it, so you're going to want to print it off and do all the other stuff. I'm not expecting perfect execution today. Right? This is just kind of the how things I need you to know. All right? So that's all of the exploits that's just on this whole thing. Right? So there's lots of Microsoft in here. Now, Siemens. What's Siemens? What does Siemens do? What does Siemens make? They make controllers for factory systems. So factory robots and other stuff. Also works on system message blocks. What is SCADA? S-C-A-D-A. Those are command and control systems for power, water, industrial controls, nuclear power plants, all that other kind of good stuff, right? There's some proxies. Anybody know what Blue Coat is, since I brought it up a couple of times? Blue Coat is a network level and a backbone network level management and monitoring system, right? So if you find a Blue Coat system on your network, there's vulnerabilities in it because that thing was written by a human being. So if you can take over the proxy system for the internet, how much fun can you have? A lot, right? You're also going to see something here that says excellent or great or average or good. Excellent means it's 9 times out of 10 it's going to work, right? Good is about 4 times out of 10. Great is about 50-50. Average is about 50-50, right? So if you try to launch an attack against something that doesn't exist on our private closed network here in the school, right, it's not going to work, period. So if you say, ooh, this Blue Coat looks really, really interesting, but there's no Blue Coat here in our little victim network, then that attack isn't going to work, right? Now you'll notice that there's some CC proxy in here as well, right? So there's some CC proxy issues on the software I had you guys install on your personal computers here in the lab. You're welcome, right? So if you don't need CC proxy and you know that there's a vulnerability with CC proxy, what's the first thing you should do? Delete that puppy because you don't need it, right? Almost every single chunk of human-written software is going to have a vulnerability. And people spend a lot of time in their basements actually trying to figure out how to break this stuff wide open, right? So just kind of one of those things to know about. Perl, remote code Perl execution. Perl is a programming language that goes along with Novell NetWare. All right, we don't use Novell Network in here. MySQL's got some problems, right? And we know we've got some MySQL going. We don't have anything Oracle. We do have some Oracle MySQL in here. So there's some other script injection things that you can do, right? This opens up the whole door to cracking open our victim networks and making a user account. Anybody remember how to do and make a user account from the command line? Net user add, basically, in a nutshell. All right? So there's tons of really, really cool stuff in here. If you aim a Linux attack at a Windows box, it will fail 100% of the time. If you aim a Windows attack at a Linux box, it will fail 100% of the time. You really have to pick and choose what you're going to do here. All right? So a lot of people get frustrated because they don't understand why their Tomcat attacks aren't working against an Apache server. 2 different chunks of software. An attack won't work against something that doesn't exist. Right? So you really have to recon and plan your attacks out. And that's one of the things that hackers are always going to do. They don't just blindly do things. They don't just throw a bunch of stuff at a server and see what sticks. They're very methodical in what they do. All right? Absolutely methodical. All right? So if we want to use exploit Windows SMB MS08 and because I can never remember the whole name for some of these. Oops. What the heck? Metasploit. All right, I'm going to use a specific exploit, and it's really fussy about how it types in. If you make a typo, it will fail to load. All right? If something else is going on, then there's another problem that we should use. exploit Windows. All right? You can also up arrow key. I see what I'm doing wrong. All right, so if it took it and it did it right, you'll see exploit. My bust on this one. It's just use Windows SMB because I want to use a particular exploit, right? So it says then that it's ready to now use MS08067. So you should see this, right? The other thing you can do too is if you want to type and see if the computer is vulnerable to it, you can type check. And it will actually go out to that computer and see. Not all check works with all modules. All right? Sometimes these modules work and sometimes they don't. That's part of the problem with using the Community Edition and other forms of software, is that it doesn't necessarily always work that way. Right? Some modules have the check function, others don't. All right? If it doesn't work, then that means I picked the wrong computer, right? Or if the connection timed out. So the question is 6 even up and running, or did it get completely trashed? If it doesn't work on one, right, then what we can do is we can try a different computer. So if I want to, then we set our host 192.168.203.9, right? And we did that, and then we can type check again and see if it will actually go. And if you have this little part that says vulnerable, then you guys are good to go. Right? That means that exploit will work against that box. So against the XP box, this one works. Against the Windows 2003 box, it doesn't. There's other ones for the Windows 2003 boxes. All right? Then all you got to do is type exploit. XPLOIT. What happens if what doesn't work? I'm sorry, it's telling you what? Then that's the error that you are using a different exploit than I am? All right, so that means that that exploit, the way it was written, doesn't support the check command.
But I can still try that.
You can still try that as much as you want. All right, so what ends up happening, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn off a couple more lights in here so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm into that box right now. All right, I'm in, I'm good, I'm gold, everything's happy. And what it tells me is what it's done, right, is we set my R host to 203.9 because the earlier one I tried to do didn't pass check. Target's vulnerable, and then just type exploit. And what it does is it starts that reverse handler for you, right, on a port, so it comes back to me. It says, detecting target, SP service pack 0, language English, Windows XP, universal. Hey, there you go, we're good. Trigger the vulnerability, boom, and then we're in. When you're in Meterpreter. It's like DOS, but it's not DOS, all right? You still have access to all the functions in Metasploit, but you're not really in the system because you're not at the command line in DOS, right? So you're kind of in the Meterpreter window. One of the things that you can do if you want to hide yourself in the system so that it doesn't say Metasploit, I'm in ya, right? What you want to do is there's something called Incognito Mode, and I always have a hard time spelling incognito. So what we can do is we can type in use incognito. All right. If I get a success on that, that means I've now looked like a different process on the box. If someone was to come through and take a look at all the services running on that box, they would not see Metasploit. They would just see another service host. They'd see another remote service host just like you would on any Windows network. So I am completely invisible now to whoever's managing that box.
What's the downside?
I haven't found a downside to Incognito yet. Because this is the community edition and you're training. Right? There's a lot of things that the community edition doesn't do that the professional version just does automatically. Right? And what was your comment, John? Would this would have absolutely nothing to do with any kind of remote desktop, because what we did is we broke the stack. We broke the operations and normal handling of system message blocks to get in. We took advantage of a buffer overflow. So as far as someone administering this, they would just see a normal connection between two Windows boxes. Right? And there'd be nothing in the service host file or any of the tasks that are running underneath that box that would show that, no, it's really a malicious person inside your box. Right? So then we're there. If you want to, and you want to see what kind of options you have available to you, you can type in help. And it will tell you all the stuff that you can do inside that box that you now own. Right? You have to consider this box 100% fully compromised. Even though I haven't done anything yet, right? The fact that I'm in here exploiting a software flaw in Windows means that you no longer own this box. And that's what kind of makes it interesting. So if you want to dump the contents of the SAM database, and what's in the SAM database? All the accounts by their hashes. Then I can put those hashes in a program called John the Ripper and actually pull them out, right? Literally. I'll have someone's password. And once I've got someone's password, I don't need to break into anyone else's box anymore. The one I'm going to want to go for is the administrator box, right? And the reason why the administrator account is so awesome is because people reuse administration accounts right and left in an organization. There is no organization that has a unique administrator for every single computer on their network, right? There just isn't an organization that can manage that level of password complexity. It just doesn't exist. You can also move things in background. You can do a lot of other really cool things. The other thing that's kind of interesting too, right, is if you type list underscore tokens, and this may or may not work, minus U, this should tell you the context of who you are inside the box. So right now I'm a local service, I'm a network service, and I'm system. All right? So that's who this box thinks I am. I'm a person driving this thing, but it thinks that I'm local service, or I'm a network service, or I'm a system service, which means I have those permissions for those services, right? I can do anything that any other service can do on that Windows box. I can do anything that any local service can do or any network service can do. And this makes a big difference when you start doing stuff, right? Is who you can impersonate, right? If you want to get out of this, you can just go ahead and type shell, and then all of a sudden, you're in that box. You're in Windows XP. You're actually at the DOS level now. And you can do anything that you want to do that has to do with that. So if I want to do and add a user, right, what I can do is I can go net, user, Dan1, add. And then boom, I'm in there, right? Net, local group, administrators, admin, admin, administrators, Dan, add. And now I'm a local administrator on that box, as far as anyone's concerned. And then if I want to add myself so I can actually go in and do stuff, right, and don't forget this part. And it has to be done exactly. Yep. You got to have remote desktop. All right? And you have to type it exactly right. And now I'm part of an administrator group, and I'm a remote desktop guy. So I'm in the system. I have an account. I added myself to the administrators group because being an administrator is the reason why I'm here. And then I want to be able to remote desktop in. just because that would be kind of fun to do that, right? And then if I want to verify all this stuff took, typing net user, and it should show my Dan account. And if you go over to the Linux to that XP box, you'll see that Dan actually has a login now. I'm good. I can come back anytime I want. I can do anything I want to do with this box, right? And then I'm basically done. So if I want to see what's en route, it helps if I type Windows commands instead of Linux commands. Right, I can go do stuff. Now, a really cool thing to do is go ahead and rewrite someone's autoexec.bat so it will go out to the network and download malware of choice every time they start up the system. Right? That's always a fun thing to do. Rewrite someone else's configuration file so it keeps on re-exposing the systems to whatever malware or vulnerability that you want. Right? So wget works just the same in Windows as it does in Linux. So you could actually wget to some server farm somewhere and have it keep on re-trojaning that computer system every time they log in or log out. So even if they log in, because a lot of people don't look at autoexec.bat anymore. They just don't. Take advantage of the human weaknesses that we've got here, right? If you want to go ahead and see what's really, really cool, you could always see if there's anything interesting in documents and settings. Right? Administrators, all users, student. Yeah, exactly. My documents is always a fun thing, right? If this is a live computer, not on a test network, there'd be all sorts of stuff underneath my documents. If this is the CEO's computer, there's a ton of cool stuff in here that you may want to know about. Right? And then that's it. You're in. You can do anything you want to do with the box. You can actually come in. You can try to remote desktop. There's all sorts of other things that you can do. Right? And then boom, you're done. And it will show you everything. When you get into user environment, this is interesting. These are the footprints you leave behind, right? You're actually going to just leave this. Windows cannot determine the user or computer name, right? When we go to Incognito Mode, Windows doesn't know what to do with what we just did to it. It has no idea what to do with it. So it kind of gives you that unable to determine user or computer name. That means that something weird's going on in the network. So when you're going through and you're doing your security logs and you're doing all your security reports, if you see don't know, can't find a policy, can't find any context for this user or this computer, it kind of states that either there's some bad programming going on or there's someone doing something really crappy on your network. Right? So this is exactly what it's going to look like. It's just going to be a user env error. And we're going to see this all over the place. This is not an uncommon error, which is what makes this really kind of neat. So you're in the system. You can do anything you want to do. Make a user account. Make a dozen user accounts. Put something really cool in the autoexec.bat file so it keeps on reworking that computer every time they log in. Right? Do evil things. And that's the entire Metasploit thing. Any questions? Autoexec.bat is always automatically read on Windows boot looking for stuff. It's just a nature of function of Windows, right? Maybe not so much now in 8.1, but back in the day with XP, when we're not that far removed from the MS-DOS days, right? MS-DOS still underlies a lot of what happens in a Windows box. So you almost get DOS and then they just put this nice graphical user interface over the top of it to make it easier to manage. When you're here and you're at this command line, you're actually at MS-DOS again. It's old school. And you can pretty much so do everything in DOS that you can do with a GUI. Did that answer the question? You can turn around and change the attribution of your autoexec.bat file to be hidden and do a typo. Type in autoexec.e.bat and it will never read it. So you could do something where it looks similar that most people will just gloss over it. They'll see autoexec and not worry about it. But you can change the attributes, right? So remember the old attrib command? A trib minus H will make it invisible. It's hidden, unless in the GUI they have show hidden files and folders like most of us should be doing. You'd have to make two files. One called autoexec.bat that's got all your evil stuff in it, and change the attrib over to hidden. You need to make another file because you don't want to trip your hand, and do autoexec.e.bat so that most people will gloss over it. Because you got to remember, human weakness. We're going to see what we want to see. We're not necessarily going to see what's really there. And if you're a system administrator in a hurry, and you've been told to go and check all the autoexec.bat files, which is really unlikely, then you want to take advantage of what human nature is. By the time they hit this one compromised box hidden in a closet, they'll probably never even see it, unless they've scripted it and they've actually doing this machine to machine. So any other questions? Everybody good? Everybody knows, not at home, right? Because you don't have a victim machine at home. Everybody knows that this is really, really cool in the lab here. Not anywhere else on the Highline network. Don't go to the library and try this. Don't go home and try this. For the love of God, don't go to building 30 and try this, okay? They will absolutely blow a gasket. You will watch a big spew of blood come right out of their neck because they will freak out completely. All right? But when you're in there, I want you to go ahead and I do want you to check and see what kind of footprints you guys do leave behind, right? Because you are going to leave some footprints behind. All tools leave some kind of footprint behind. Just like we talked about with NetSparker, and you can see all the attacks in the logs with NetSparker. Same thing applies here with the Windows logs. Does it kind of make sense? All right. Anybody want to go try this for real on their own? All right. Then it's all yours,